Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. I hope everyone is okay and I hope everyone has had a good Christmas and a good break. It is finally the end of 2020. Thank God. What a friggin' year it's actually been. And I've been reflecting on the last 12 months and that is why I wanted to do a YouTube video today, because I know that as much as we're all like, oh, you know, roll on next year, happy new year, there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of worry for a lot of people. And there's also a lot of people now who I know have hit really hard times in 2020, and it's been from no fault of their own. These things have just literally, this whole pandemic has come at, you know, some people especially worse than others, and it's come out of nowhere. And I've been reflecting on this year a lot, and this time last year I was honestly, I'd got myself in the biggest mess that I've ever got myself in. I've never been through such a hard time in my life. And at that time, so 12 months ago, December 2019, I just felt like I had so much bad luck coming at me all at once. And I'm pretty sure that that is how there's going to be people feeling right now with all of the things that have happened in 2020. So I wanted to do a video today for any of those people who are struggling now and are feeling very uncertain about next year. What I want to do in this video is go through all of the things which happened to me this time last year. And that is not in a way that I want people to feel sorry for me. You know, some of the decisions I made myself, and they were big, massive learning curves, which I think maybe I needed to go through. Then at the time, I also had a string of other things which just came out of the woodwork, which were just made things 10 times harder with the situation that I was going through. Even during that time, I did a lot of mindful things, which I honestly believe that they got me through it. And this time this year, so 12 months on from such a hellish time, my situation has completely flipped. I've had everything which I've wanted this time last year has actually come true this year, and things have come into my life which have been completely like unbelievable. Then once I've gone through all of the things which I went through, I want to tell you about all the mindful things which I did at that time and during that time, which I honestly believe have helped manifest all of the luck that I had in 2020. Because the most unbelievable things have happened and come into my life, and the most, well, I say unexpected, but they weren't unexpected because I felt like I asked them to happen, which sounds crazy. So if you're new to all of this like universal energy and all this crazy stuff, you'll probably be like, what the hell? And I hope that from this video, it will give some of you some inspiration that things can change at literally any time, and things can happen anytime, and the most unbelievable things can happen. What I've also done is like written notes on all this because there was so much that happened. I just don't want to miss anything out. It's so funny as well because when I was preparing these notes, there was some things which there was so much that went on. I had literally so much bad luck that I'd actually forgotten about some of the things. Also, if you can hear any gangster rap music in the background of this video, it's because my teenage next door neighbours have just started blasting their music out. I swear to God, I think one of them got like a DJ set or something for Christmas. So I first of all want to start off by giving you a little bit of background to where I was this time last year. So if I do look at my piece of paper, it's because I'm just reviewing my notes. So in 2018, me and my partner bought our first house, and 2018-19, all of our money and all of our savings was going into the house. So we bought it and we've been renovating it, and we've bought all the furniture for it because previous to that we'd been renting in the city centre in like a furnished flat. So you might know or you might not know, but I'm a hairdresser and I live in Manchester, but I still work 2 days a week in my hometown Stafford. So I work 2 days a week in Stafford and 3 days a week in Manchester, do 5 days. And in 2019, maybe not this time last year, but in 2019, I had been working in Manchester, and what I'd done is I had been renting my own studio space. So I rented like a big room that had a salon. It was in the city centre, and it was a massive room. It was like having my own salon really, and the studio was a really good size. However, the thing is, there was no room for expansion with me having the studio. As much as it was big enough for me to work there, there was no room for me to take on any more staff. The room was on like a 4th floor, so my landlord wouldn't let me install like a fitted sink. So, which sounds crazy, because when I first took the room on, my plan was to kind of mainly do makeup and extensions and do hairstyling. And just with my hairdressing side of things, when I needed to wash hair, my plan was to just do minimal and just focus on that side of the business. Anyway, so I got my studio. I didn't have a fitted sink. I used to use like a portable one. So if I did need to wash someone's hair, like I could do it, but it wasn't ideal, if you know what I mean. So there was no room for, I couldn't take on another hairdresser in there because there wasn't a fitted sink. So anyway, I started at this studio, changed it all into a little salon. It was super cute, and it was nice having my own little space. Obviously it was like right in the city centre. Everyone around me as well, all the other creatives that I work next to, all the other people who were renting spaces near me were all just like really nice. My landlord was lovely, like he was so helpful, such a decent guy. So I kind of like got my studio, and even though for my business it probably wasn't the right space because I couldn't expand in there, I kind of settled in and I stayed there for like 3 years. And in 2019 I was like, I've got my house now. The next thing for me to do in Manchester is to get my own salon. So I started looking, and the thing is, because I'd been renting my room in the city centre, all of my clients were in the city centre, and it was really, when I started looking around, it was really expensive to get salons. Like what I was paying at that time to get my own salon central, or to renovate anything, it was just looking at so expensive. There was one stage during this period where I looked at renting a chair in another girl's salon, and it was all agreed, and I was going to go and I was going to get rid of my studio and I was going to work in the salon. And then at the last minute I just backed out because I was thinking, oh, I've got it so good and I love having my little studio space. It's like having my own salon anyway. So I ended up staying at the studio longer. 2019, I'd been looking for a salon and I found a space in the July. So the space was above 2 shops, so it was massive. It had a couple of rooms, it had like 2 sets of toilets, and it was just a perfect size for a salon. And I thought by getting that and taking that on, I'd be able to then take on obviously other hairdressers, other makeup artists, beauticians. Like it was big enough to hold whatever I wanted to do with it. Now with my background and with renting, I felt very confident that I had enough experience and I was old enough and I knew what I was doing with taking on a salon. My previous experience with renting is I'd rented 2 residential flats in Manchester, and I'd rented my studio off my current landlord. I had no problems with him. It was very straightforward and very easy. And I'd also been renting a chair at a salon in Stafford, so I just felt very confident that I'd be fine with taking on my own salon. I didn't have any worries. I didn't feel as if I needed to get any advice. But this is the first and biggest mistake which I made, and it was not knowing the difference between a residential lease, so if you're renting a flat off somebody, to renting a shop off somebody, because the leases are completely different. The contracts are just so different, and I wish I'd have known this to begin with. Now the difference between the two, if you don't know, are if you rent a flat off somebody, all the rights basically are in the tenant's hands. You know, if your boiler breaks down, or if there's a problem at the flat, or if your electricity breaks, it's the landlord's responsibility. And that is what I'd been used to. So I wasn't worried about renting because I just assumed that that was what happened. And I just assumed that it'd be the same if I was renting a shop off somebody. Surely it's their shop, so they'd be responsible. I was very wrong. So with a commercial property, it is completely different. So the ball is not in your court when you're the tenant. At the end of the day, when you're renting a commercial property, you're a businesswoman. You should be checking out everything on that lease and throughout that property to make sure you're fully aware of everything before you sign on the dotted line. Because when you sign on that dotted line with a commercial lease, it's very hard to get out of, unless there's like a break clause in the lease, or unless something makes it void or fit for purpose. But it's much harder to get out of than it is with, say, like a residential lease. So I viewed the property 3 times. The first time I went on my own. Second time I took with me a joiner who was one of my client's husbands. He came to have a look to do me a quote on the floor because the flooring needed completely redoing. He did a brand new floor throughout the whole thing. And then the third time I went with my dad. So my dad is by trade a joiner, and he does know his stuff with the building trade, but he's definitely not like, we didn't check over the electrics or the plumbing, which was one of the biggest mistakes which I made during this process. I learned that if you are going to take on a commercial property, you need to take with you everyone, every bit of work that you need doing to that premises. You need to get all the quotes in and get someone who knows what they're doing to look at all of that before you sign the lease. This is so important. A lot of my friends who've got salons had said to me that what they'd done is they'd got their empty shop, they'd then, when they'd got the shop, they'd then had people come in, they'd just had people to fit the sinks or put the extra plugs in, you know, and make it into whatever business needs they needed. And I just thought that it would be such a simple process. And I think it was in the second time that I viewed the property, I noticed there was no hot water coming from any of the taps. So it had running water, and also all the electrics seemed to be working fine. I didn't even think that I'd need to like check any of that out because they were working when I viewed the property. The water was the main one, but when I asked the estate agent about the water and where the boiler would be, he was just a bit like, oh, I'm sure it'll be downstairs, like where the takeaways are, because I couldn't find the boiler when I was looking around in the rooms. And this was a massive warning sign to me that I should have seen earlier on, but I didn't. Another thing which the estate agent did let me know before, which should have been a huge warning sign, but I didn't think anything of it. He said to me that the electricity with my shop and the one below was shared. He said that the landlord splits the bills between the 2 shops every month. So he said that, you know, I won't be having my own bill, he said, but, you know, you split it with takeaway below. And I just, because I was so naive to all of this, I was like, oh, that's fine, like, you know, he obviously has done it before. So I trusted, and I very much put a lot of trust into the estate agent. And I do believe that the estate agents were good people. I just look back now and reflect on it, that they were working for the landlord and they just wanted that property gone. And they had the landlord's best interests at heart rather than mine. And I truly believe that the duty of care which I got from the estate agents was towards all the landlord. I do think there was a lack in duty of care towards me, because they definitely took me for a ride and made everything seem so, oh yeah, I'm sure that'll be easy, I'm sure there'll be a boiler downstairs, I'm sure that the electrics, I'm sure that the landlord splits the bills every month, so he's never had any problems before. So naively, I just believed everything that the estate agent said, and I did put a lot of my trust into him, and that was a big mistake. So anyway, despite all of that, I was still all up for going for the property. In my head, I had this thought that I was going to get the keys, then I was going to get the electricians and the plumbers to come out, give me obviously a quote on the job to fit the sinks, and to rewire all the electrics, and they'd be able to just do that really easy. Then there was a couple of other warning signs which arose throughout this process. First of all, the estate agent wanted 3 months upfront rent from me, which everything that he basically asked, I was just agreeing to, because I just thought that that was what happened. Stupidly, I should have got some advice from my own solicitor or from an independent person on the whole process of taking on a commercial property, but because I didn't, it sadly cost me a lot of money. So they wanted 3 months upfront rent. They also wanted £600 from me to get the lease drawn up, which was a complete joke, and I stupidly agreed to that. I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. And the way that the estate agent worded it to me was, oh Amy, we've spoken to the landlord and he said that you won't have to pay a deposit, but could you pay £600 for the lease to be drawn up? Whoa, warning sign. I could not believe that I stupidly agreed to this time last year. So naively, I was like, yeah, that's fine, okay. And afterwards, like, looking back now, how stupid was I to do that? Anyway, I had all my trust in the estate agent and I really wanted the property, so I was just like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. So the estate agent literally messaged me saying on the 28th of August, bearing in mind the lease starts in 4 days, "Hi Amy, the lease is ready at the shop. Can you come down and sign it today?" Okay, so at this point now, I did start to think, hold on a minute, shouldn't I be getting legal advice on this? And anyway, so I asked the estate agent to email me through the lease. He then complained that it was too big to send, because it was 46 pages long, a huge document, but he managed it. He did it in like 2 parts. So anyway, I had the lease. I then said to the estate agent that I needed to get some legal advice on this. So we've got like a family solicitor, which I use if I ever need someone to look over something or give me any advice on anything legal. I'd usually go to him. He did point a lot of things out to me actually. He picked up that there was no EPC certificate, which for anyone, if you are renting either a commercial or a residential property, an EPC certificate is a legal requirement, and that was missing in that lease. So he picked up on that. He also went through a few different things with me and said, you know, is this what you want to do? And I was like, yeah, want to do it. Sign on the dotted line. And when you are renovating a property, usually the tenant will get a rent-free period. So you should get, if you're renovating that place and making it nice and doing things to which are going to add value to that property, you should get a rent-free period. And I did not know this at the time, so I just assumed it was like renting a flat where you just sign the papers and then from that month you pay. I didn't even think that you'd get any free period just because of the renovation. Anyway, so even after all of that, my sister still picked up on a hell of a lot of things, and he made me fully aware of a lot of things in the contract. Even despite the missing EPC, I stupidly still signed the lease, and I got the keys 4 days later. So I was meant to get them on the 1st of September, but because of the delays with my solicitor having a look at everything, and because of how long it took him to read through it, I got the keys, and I got the keys on the 4th of September. So the first day that I was in there, once I'd signed the lease, the estate agent let me know that the landlord had misplaced the EPC. So I assumed that it was already done, it had just been misplaced, so he couldn't find it. Anyway, I got the keys and I was in the property. You know, I got in there and I was starting to do painting. I had some electricians and plumbers coming out to have a look at the work which I needed doing. And the estate agent is then chasing me to do the EPC. He said, oh, we can't find it, so we're going to send someone out to do another one. And then the first day that I was in there, I had an electrician. I had a couple of electricians out to come and do me a quote. And some guys just came in, they had a look around, did me a quote. And then these 2 guys came, right? One was an electrician and one was a plumber. And I had a good feeling about these 2 because when they came, they were thoroughly looking through everything. So the electrician was like really looking at all the plugs. Some of the other guys just come and had a quick nose around and then they're like, oh, this is how much it'll be, gone. Whereas these 2 guys, the electrician and the plumber, were super thorough. They were like checking out all the boxes. They were like looking at the plugs, looking at the wiring. I mean, I know nothing about electrics and plumbing, but they just seemed very thorough. And the plumber, he was like taking the floorboards up and he was seeming really confused. He was like, I can't find a boiler in this property. And I said to him, I thought, oh, the estate agents have said to me that they think it could be downstairs. So he went downstairs, had a word with the takeaway guys, and the takeaway guys were like, I'm sorry, but your boiler's not in here. So he said to me, I don't think you've got a boiler in the property. So this is where this whole thing starts to go sour, because why the hell has this estate agent and this landlord rented out a property to a hairdresser which doesn't even have a boiler? So we had to figure this out. Well, I had to figure this out myself, but sadly I had already signed the lease. So that was the plumber. In the meantime, the electrician is looking around, looking at all the plugs and whatever, and he was like, Amy, I need a second opinion with all of this. And during this whole thing, these 2 guys, I feel like, were sent to me from the universe, because these 2 guys played a massive part in making me realise that this property was not fit for purpose. Anyway, so at this point then, I went back to the landlord and I said to him, look, I've had an electrician and a plumber out, the plumber can't find the boiler, where is it? And he said, oh, I'm really sorry, but you haven't got a boiler in that property. What? So it was finalised that these guys had rented this property out to me, flogged me off by the estate agent by saying, oh, I think that the boiler's downstairs, when it wasn't, and they must have known that all along. They just wanted me to sign that frigging lease. So once it was finalised, there was no boiler in the property, me and the landlord then started to negotiate on what we were going to do about the boiler situation. He offered very kindly to put a boiler in the property. He suggested that we get one of those big tank boilers, the old-fashioned types, where you go in the morning, you have a timer on it, it warms it up like twice a day. And he said, what I'll do is I'll pay for the boiler and then you can get it installed, which I realised afterwards is easy because buying the boiler is the cheapest part, but getting it installed into the property and having obviously the sinks fitted on it was more expensive. I spoke to my dad. Obviously my dad, like, is really handy, knows loads about this, and to be honest, during this period he was having kittens because obviously he was seeing that I'd made such a big mistake. So my dad said to me, you need to push for a combi boiler in that property. He said, you'll need gas to the property. I then did my own research and looked at getting gas put into the premises. So yeah, I got a quote for £700 to get gas installed in the property. The landlord straight off refused that. He said, I'm not putting gas into the property. This is your only option with the boiler, and that's it. The estate agent, who I could tell at this time was a bit like anyway, the estate agent suggested that we have the boiler which the landlord put in, this big tank one. He said, and then with your showers you could just get an electric shower put in. So that kind of like solved that. So that was the first week. Then the following week the electrician comes back with his friend who's a certified electrician. The guy that he brought with him works for like a big company. I think he does something to do with the unis in Manchester. And he came in, he had a look around and he checked out the board very thoroughly, same as the other guy. And he said to me, you need to get out of this lease. He said, this whole property it's been wired up all over the place. He was like, this whole property should be on something called a ring main, and it's not. He said, whoever's done this has just done a dodgy bodge job. None of the fire alarms were connected. He said that the takeaway below were linked. He was like, the fact that he's saying to you that he's going to split the bills, he said, I don't know how he's going to split and how he's going to work out what you've both used, because your businesses are obviously so different. And he said as well, because because me and the takeaway were using electricity from one like box or whatever, he said if you both used a lot of electricity it could just blow at any time. So obviously this was such a massive stress, and at this point as well I was thinking, oh my god, like what have I done signing that lease? So I was super grateful of their advice because it was obviously very honest, and they weren't like, oh, you know, this is the quote, how much it'll be. They were like, you need to like get out of this completely. And I'm super grateful even to this day, because I didn't even know them. I literally randomly found them online. Then the following day I spoke to my parents and I backed out. I basically emailed the estate agents and I just said, look, I'm really sorry, but this property which I've signed the lease for, it's just not fit for purpose. There's no boiler in the property, which I was not made of before. Like, why have you tried to rent me out a property when there's not even a boiler in it? Also, the EPC was missing, which is a legal requirement and should have been done before. Not only that, but obviously the electrics are all over the place, and I'm going to be sharing an electricity bill with the takeaway below. And I just said that I wanted to get out of it, basically. So anyway, the landlord got back to me and said, Amy can surrender the lease from today. However, she can't have any money back because their argument was they'd already invested money into the property to get ready for me to take it over. So I wasn't getting any money back. And at this point, so bearing in mind, at this point, I had given notice on my studio in Manchester. So I had 2 weeks left of my studio in Manchester to use, and then after 2 weeks I was going to have nowhere to work, essentially, because I had it in my head that this salon renovation was going to be done in September. Beginning of October I was going to have to be completely moved out of my studio and into the new salon. So anyway, this is like 2.5 weeks before, and I was like, oh my God, this is just a massive hiccup. For me to back out now, I will end up with no salon and no studio. Anyway, so another thing which they proposed was I can either surrender the lease, come out now and lose all my money, which bearing in mind was in the thousands mark. I'd already paid 3 months upfront rent. I'd already paid £600 for the lease to be drawn up. Along with that, I'd bought loads of like things for the salon, furniture, I'd bought paint, decorating stuff. So anyway, even with all of that, I should have cut my losses at this point because it wasn't right. However, it would have given me nowhere to work, and because I literally put my heart and soul into this dream of having this salon, I was like, I just didn't know what to do. The landlord did offer me 4 months free rent at this point, okay? So he said you can either cut your losses now, surrender the lease, or you can have a 4-month rent-free period. Now, this to me was like the part where I thought, do you know what? I've already spent all this money already on this journey. I feel like I can't just cut my losses now because I'll lose it all. Despite the problems, even though I know at this point I should have cut my losses, and I'd had these warning signs that had said to me this isn't the right thing, but in my head I was like on this journey where I was like, I really want this new salon, and I was like, I really want it. So I accepted the 4-month rent-free period, and I kept saying to my mum was like, this isn't the right thing, Amy. And I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I've already invested a lot of money into it. I'm sure once it's set up, like, it'll be fine. I won't have any problems. I did come to the realisation, though, that with the problems and with the delays on things, I wasn't going to be able to start in the beginning of October. So at this point, I needed another salon to work from in between my move. And this is where, I don't know, earlier on in my video, I said that like I wanted to go, and I got in touch, I was going to go and work at another salon in Manchester, and I got in touch with this girl and it was all going ahead when I had my studio, and I basically at the very last minute backed out. I then got in touch with her and I thought I'll ask her if I can go and work at the salon, rent a chair just for a couple of weeks, and then I'll stay there for a few weeks, and I can, when my salon's ready, I can move into that. So that's what I did. I started at the Dalton salon, started to really like it, had the keys obviously for the other salon in Manchester, my salon, which I was taking on. Then shortly after that, I was at the new salon painting one night, and I was on my own there. It was after work, it was at 7 PM, and I was upstairs, and basically we had some bin bags that I needed to take downstairs, and I thought I'll take the bin bags down because the landlord had told me that the bins for the property were like at the back of the building. But at that time I didn't have a key, so he was like, if you need to use them, then just go through, ask one of the takeaway guys. So I thought, oh, I'll take these bin bags down, I'll introduce myself to the takeaway guys, just let them know obviously that I'm going to be moving in the next couple of weeks. So I took my bin bags down, I had my painting stuff on, and I said to the guys, oh hiya, like, I want to introduce myself, I'm Amy, I'm going to be moving into the space upstairs, I'm just renovating it into a salon. I said, I've got these bin bags, do you mind if I just put them in the back, in the bins at the back? The landlord's like said I could use them, and this takeaway guy was like, what do you mean you're moving in? And I was like, I've just took up over the space above. I said the landlord's like said that I just need to ask you to give me access to the bins at the back. And he was like really confused. He was like, what do you mean? He was like, we've all got our own bins. He said, you obviously haven't got your own yet. And I was a bit like, oh right, okay. I said, I said, oh, I didn't realise, sorry, like I didn't know. And he was like, what do you mean you're moving in 3 weeks? He said, and I said, oh, well, I'm starting, then I said to him, oh, I've just been renovating the property. We've had a few problems because there's not been a boiler, and there's not been, the electrics have been, I said, the electrics, we're sharing electric, aren't we? And this guy was like, well, you can tell a landlord from me that if you move in 3 weeks, and I'm going to cut your electricity supply off. And then he was like, my business has been here for 6 years. He said, and we have paid for the electricity for my space and for yours for the whole of the 6 years. He was like, he's never split any of the bills. And at this point I was thinking, oh my God. And he was like, yeah, he was like, so you can tell him from me that if you move in, I'm going to cut your electricity supply off. What? And then obviously I was like super shocked at this. I was like, what? He said, and I said to him, the landlord said to me that I'm going to be able to have my own you know, electrical meter put in, I said to him, you know, he's told me that now that I'm in there, he's going to get me my own fitted. And the guy, this takeaway guy was literally laughing at me. He was like, as if he was like, good luck to you because he's a flipping stingy whatever. And I was thinking, oh my god. And then the takeaway guy, then I think I could tell that he felt like a bit sorry for me, not a bit sorry for me, but he was a bit like, oh, she's got no idea, has she? And then he was like, look, the landlord is a complete crook. He was like, he never gets his hand in his pocket. He said, my takeaway, he goes, we pay £700 a year for building insurance, which I was going to have to do a similar amount than he was paying. And he was like, I'll show you the back of my shop. And he showed me inside of his takeaway, there was like loads of damp that had come off because there was a flat roof on the building. So he was like, we pay all this building insurance. We've asked him for years to get this damp sorted out and he won't do anything about it. He's like, he's a complete crook. And then the takeaway guy then started like ranting onto me, telling me like exactly what the landlord was like. And I was thinking, oh. So anyway, the takeaway guy then went on to tell me how there'd been 2 other people who'd rented the space in the 6 years he'd been there. The space which I was going to take on, 2 people had rented it for 6 months at a time. And he was like, they've never paid me any electric. He goes, we've always paid their electric bill and they've literally just ended up going after 6 months and the landlord's done nothing about it. He also informed me, and this is one of the funniest parts of this whole story, the takeaway guy also informed me that the property had a £10,000 water bill on it. So the landlord had not been paying his water bill and it got to 10 grand. So the water people were like chasing after him, but they couldn't turn his water off on the property because they didn't have access to the pipe, which is at the back of the building, which were where the bins were. I was literally like, when he was telling me, I was thinking, I'm about to like spend thousands of pounds renovating this premises into be a salon, and there's a £10,000 outstanding water bill on the property from that the corrupt landlord has not sorted out. So you can imagine at this point how I was like, oh my god. I mean, who the hell like racks up a £10,000 water bill? Water is about 40 quid a month on most properties. I mean, come on. So then the following day, I then rang the estate agent and I told him, I just said, look, I've been at the property last night. I've had the tenant, the takeaway tenant below threaten me, tell me that he's going to cut my electric off in 3 weeks if I move into that property. Bearing in mind, we were just about to start the renovations and I was going to spend thousands of pounds on this property. I said to him, he's threatened to cut my electricity supply off, and also he's informed me of a £10,000 water bill. And I could tell on the phone to the estate agent that even he was thinking, oh my god, what the... Anyway, so the estate agent got in touch with the landlord and I basically said to the estate agent, look, I need to, for me to start the renovations on this property and to continue with this lease, I need you to show me an up-to-date paid water bill for the premises. I also need proof that I'm going to be having my own electric meter put in and installed. And if these things can't be fulfilled, then I want to surrender the lease for good this time. So he went back to the landlord, and funnily enough, the landlord refused to give me an up-to-date water bill. Just refused, said, you know, I'm sorry, she doesn't need one. He also said that although he had started the process of me getting my own electric meter, he didn't really have any proof to send me, which is obviously, at this point now, I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to cut my losses here. I'd started at the salon, the Dalton salon, and I was really enjoying it there, and I was so grateful that even though I asked the salon owner, Lisa, that I could come for 2 weeks, and even though their chairs were at capacity, she so willingly was going to let me stay there for the foreseeable, because she could tell that I was in such a difficult position with this other salon, and I was just ready to cut my losses with this whole thing. And I knew at this point that me talking to that takeaway guy was the last warning that the universe was sending me about that property and about that landlord. So obviously the landlord then came back to me saying couldn't send any proof about the water bill, couldn't prove about the electric meter, and he basically came back to me and said, really sorry, but you're also not getting out of the lease. We refuse to surrender the lease to you now. So this is where I was in the, excuse my language, the shit big time, because I'd signed a lease to the property, therefore I was then liable for that lease. And everything that happened from this point onwards, I swear to God, was sent for me to get me out of that lease. And I'm very lucky that I can reflect on this whole thing and say that I managed to get out of it, and all of the help which I needed to help me get out of that lease came to me. So then I dropped my keys off. I then informed the council that me and the landlord were in this legal dispute. The property wasn't fit for purpose, EPC hadn't been done. I gave them some information on the boiler situation, a bit of information just so they know the things I'd been through. And when you are taking on a property, like a business property, you have to pay like business rates on the property. Now, with business rates, if you've got one premises which is under £15,000, you are exempt. So you get like a relief, so you won't have to pay any business rates. So you'll just have to pay your rent, your bills, and that'll be it. If you have two premises, you have to pay business rates. Now, this is where a shit bomb got thrown at me in this whole thing. So I assumed with this property, because it was my only property that I had, only lease that I had, I assumed I would not have to pay business rates. And the business rates on the property which I had was £700 a month. So I just had I thought, because this is my only one, I'm not going to have to pay them. What I didn't realise is that because you can only get relief on a property which you're using. So if I'd have been in that property, if I'd have renovated it all and turned it into a salon, I would have been relieved from it. But because I hadn't, the council found out that me and the landlord are in this legal dispute. The premises was empty. They then let me know that there was empty property charge that was liable on that property, because they knew that there was no one using it. And this is where another like whole load of stress came to me. So at this point I was trying to get out of the lease, my best, even the landlord was refusing. And then I had the council chasing me for a £700 a month bill on the property, even though they knew that I didn't even have a key to it. So when I let them know the situation at first, I said, look, we're just in a legal dispute about it, the property wasn't fit for purpose, blah, blah, blah. At first, the girl billed me, so she said, look, I'll bill you until I think it was like the 16th of October, which I think it was about £1,000 I paid. She said, I'll bill you for that period, and now we'll chase the landlord, because, you know, you're in this dispute, and I'm guessing that, you know, we'll assume that the lease is surrendered from this date. Council have then gone to chase the landlord for this money, this £700 a month. The landlord has obviously got this £700 a month letter and been like, absolutely not. Sent my signed lease off to the council, and then the council then emailing me, getting back in touch with me saying, oh, I'm really sorry, but I know you're in this legal dispute, but we've got a signed lease for this property from you are liable. Now, the one thing which I did do at that time is, obviously I didn't just pay the council straight away, because I just said to them, look, I'm really sorry, if I'm liable for this money, I will pay it. However, we're in a legal dispute. Now, this is the part where the whole thing went sour, okay? So at this point, I am in the shit, basically. I've got this signed lease for property I haven't even got a key to, which I'm getting charged £700 a month for. Also, I was paying rent on it because I'd paid 3 months upfront rent. My solicitor at the time was obviously my family solicitor, who really now, at this point, I needed to find someone else to help me with this. I needed someone who was an expert in, like, you know, commercial law. And the weirdest thing happened to me during this period. So when I moved to the new salon, one of my clients, I know that her and her sister are both solicitors. Obviously, like, when one of my clients is a solicitor, I don't go into those detail about what they do at work, or like what line of law that they specialise in or anything like that. But I knew that my client, so one of the girls is like blonde, so I was seeing her more regular. She was coming to me every like 8 weeks. And then her sister has darker hair, And I probably we used to do her hair like every couple of months, I'd say, not like really as regular as her sister. And I hadn't seen the other sister probably for about 12 months. I did one of the sister's hairs, and I knew that she basically works in like family law. And I was telling, obviously I'd moved salons and she'd followed me, and she was asking me all about it. She said, what's been going on? I was telling her all about it, and she said to me, message my sister Lucy. And she said that her sister Lucy specialised in commercial law. She worked for a, you know, commercial law firm or whatever, like that's her field of work. And she was like, message her and see if she'll help you. And because with me, I'm, as much as I needed the help at that time, I'm still quite professional myself, as in like I didn't want to ask her for help. She's a client at the end of the day. She comes to me for hair, you know, and I do her service. I would have never have approached her and said, look, can you help me out with this? Because that's just not the way I am. So anyway, I said to her sister, oh, I'm really sorry. I said, honestly, no, I'll be fine. Like, you know, I've got our family solicitor, which he'll help me kind of thing. Like he'll, you know, and I said, if I need help, I'll obviously go to someone else. But I said, honestly, don't worry, like I'll be fine kind of thing. And then that was it. So anyway, the one sister must have gone back to Lucy, the other sister, and said, look, Amy's in this position with this landlord, this is what's happened. Anyway, then Lucy, the solicitor, booked in with me for a hair. Now I hadn't seen her for a couple of months, so I saw her and she was asking me all about what had been going on, and she literally said to me, look, I'm going to fight this for you. She said, I want you to send me all the information. She goes, I literally insist. And at the time, so this was probably about the end of October, and she'd had a baby in the September, so she said to me, I'm on maternity, I'll help you with it. And honestly, like to this day, like it's so funny because I swear to God, she came out of nowhere really. Like it was almost like what I needed at that time came to me and was like, and she had the fire in her. This is my other family solicitor, as much as he's amazing at what he does and he helped me along the way so much at the beginning. At this point now, I needed someone who had the fire in them to fight for me, which Lucy had. And I just felt like at that time, like I really needed someone to come and help me and fight my corner for me, because I was literally at a losing battle. I had the bloody landlord saying, oh, I'm so sorry, but you're still liable to pay for this lease for, well, the break clause was in 12 months. So I was thinking, I'm gonna have to pay for this salon that I haven't even got a key to for 12 months. On the flip side of things, I had the council saying to me, look, computer says no, you owe £700 a month for this empty property charge. And I just felt like at the time, the universe sent me Lucy to get me out of this shit. Like, and I can't tell you how grateful, like, I am. Sorry, I just had a moment then. But at the time, I just want to say how grateful I was, because Lucy came out of nowhere and she, I'm not kidding you, she had the fire in her and she fought my corner big time. Honestly, this is where the whole thing changed for me. And even though she had a 6-week-old baby, she was there every single night, writing emails for me to the council, telling me what to do, giving me advice on just absolutely everything. She was absolutely like, just amazing. So anyway, I sent Lucy like a big timeline of all of the information and all the things that happened. I sent her all of our correspondence, all the texts, and like I say, the whole situation changed then. She went all in on the landlord. She wrote me a 26-page detailed letter to them, going through all of the reasons why the property wasn't fit for purpose, how the contract wouldn't be legally binding because of the EPC certificate. She just went through the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb, and she picked up every single thing in that contract, that lease, which she basically said that because the property isn't fit for purpose, you can't abide by this lease. So this took about a month to get done. In the meantime, the council had been chasing me for this money, but she was then dealing with all this. So every single night she's there writing the council emails. She advised me not to give them any money. She was trying to get us to go in to have a face-to-face conversation with the girl, but the council in Manchester were refusing to do that. Basically just being a complete pen pusher, just saying, you owe this money, that's it. Computer says no. Honestly, that was the situation which I was in. Luckily, I had Lucy fire in my corner because I just didn't know what I'd done without her. Anyways, another shit bomb which got thrown on me during this whole thing was in the August. I'd been driving my car somewhere and I knocked something underneath my car and I put a hole in my oil tank or something, which resulted in oil going all into my car engine. I continued to drive it thinking my car was going to be fine. My car went to the garage in August and it was basically looking at being repaired and what the garage could do to fix it, but ultimately they let me know in the November, just when the thick of all of this is going on, that my car needs a complete new engine and it's going to cost £3,200. I could not believe it. That was another thing to add to the list of things I needed to pay for. Anyways, finally my luck began to change. So on the 19th of December, this time last year, they'd got my letter, which Lucy had written them. This was about this thick, 26 pages long, going through all of these problems. They then let me know that they would surrender the lease. In the estate agent's exact words were, the landlord will let you know that we will surrender the lease from this date. So the 19th of December, they agreed to surrender that lease. However, they did not say they would give me any money back. So at this point, I could get out of the lease. The break clause was meant to be the following September. So if they hadn't have agreed to surrender the lease on the 19th of December last year, I could have been liable to still pay for that lease, even though I didn't have a key to property, until the following September, because that was when the closest break clause, that's when the break clause was at the earliest. But Lucy was not giving up a fight. She went all in and we kept going harder trying to get the money back, but sadly I did end up losing all of my money at that time. And throughout this whole process I ended up in a lot of debt, and even though I'd had a lot of stress, I was still grateful that the lease had been surrendered. In the meantime of that, the council are being complete assholes. At this point, they were saying to me, they knew me and the landlord were in this legal dispute, and even though I forwarded them the emails saying the landlord will surrender the lease from the 19th of December, the council was still like, oh, well, we just need to get the surrender notice in writing from the landlord to confirm that. So basically, Amy, you're still liable to pay for that empty property charge until we've got the surrender notice in writing. And I was very lucky at the way that the estate agents worded that email on the 19th of December, because they said, their exact words were, the landlord has agreed to surrender the lease from today, which to me confirms that. The next thing we would have ended up doing was going to court, and if that had got to court, it would have looked bad on the landlord that they've said that and then gone back on what they've said. So anyway, they agreed to surrender the lease on the 19th of December last year. Then Lucy, my solicitor, was chasing them, trying to get them to agree to the surrender notice. We sent them one for them to sign and they didn't do it. They were just taking ages to get back. Even though they'd agreed to this surrender notice from that exact date, they were still just dragging their feet, taking ages, not replying to my emails. In the meantime, I'm trying to keep the council at bay, just saying, look, we've got to this point, we're just trying to, and I think that the landlord wasn't responding to the council either, so that was delaying things. Then all of a sudden, another change happened, and all of a sudden in February, the estate agents and the landlord are then chasing me saying, oh, we need to get, they sent me a surrender notice, like, can you sign this? And we couldn't agree on the dates, so they wanted the surrender notice to be from the February, and that the reason why they wanted that is because they wanted to get out of this empty property charge, whereas if they did it from the 19th of December, they were then going to be liable for that charge. So that we were arguing over the date basically, and the landlord was that much of an asshole. They sent me the surrender notice dated from the 22nd of February this year, and emailed at me and said, look, that's it, we're not having any more correspondence with Amy, as far as we're concerned, that's it, done. I then just got that surrender notice. I dated it from the 19th of December, which was when it had been agreed, and I sent that surrender notice off to the council and just said, look, this is a surrender notice, it's from the 19th of December, that's what we agreed, here's the email correspondence to show that that was what was agreed. I then paid this empty property charge up until then, which I think was about, however, 2 months, 3 months, so it would have been about, I think it was about £1,200. I paid that up until December. They then got back to me and said, look, we just need to speak to the landlord and make sure that this has been agreed for that date from you. So this is in February, and I was then waiting for another bill from the council for the period of December through to February. But luckily, the landlord did take liability that the surrender notice ended on the 19th. So luckily that was it, which was a massive surprise. Me and Lucy were just like, we can't believe this has happened. But luckily that was it. And I didn't get confirmation that the case was closed with the council until June this year because of the pandemic. I sent them numerous emails in March and April, and obviously they were really busy sorting all the business loans out. So I got a confirmation email in about June, July this year just saying, hi Amy, just to let you know, the landlord's taken responsibility and your surrender notice was from the 19th, so you won't owe any more money and you are free from the lease. Sorry, that ended up being like the longest story ever. But just to conclude, the things which I was paying for at that time and the things that got thrown at me, some of the things which I wasn't even going to be aware of. So I was paying for my house at the time, my business, all my stock, my Manchester chair rent, which was 2 days a week in the Dalton Salon. I was also paying for 2 days a week chair rent in Stafford. I had no car between July and November, so I was obviously getting trams, trains, Ubers around, which is costing me money. Then I had the empty property charge of £700 a month that I had to pay between September and December. Came out of nowhere, had no idea that that cost was going to arise. Then obviously I also wasted a lot of money on moving out the studio, buying furniture for the new salon, which I didn't even use. I also took a bank loan out for the salon renovation, which just went down the drain at that time because it just ended up going on the car and all the other things which were cropping up during this period. And I got into the most debt which I've ever been in, which I never want to be in ever again, and I never will be, hopefully, after this learning curve. And that's where I was in December 2019. And honestly, throughout this whole process of all the stress, all the worry, all the things which just kept popping up, I honestly just kept telling myself that I need to keep going, I'm not going to give up, and I knew that things were going to get better. And in some ways, I kept saying to myself, like, things will be happening as they should. And I do believe, when I reflect on last year now, it was all to teach me a massive lesson on not just jumping into things, to check things out before I do them. And another major thing which I've realised now is there was certain things in this process which I believe were sent from the universe as warning signs during this period. And I believe that they were getting thrown at me to say that that salon was not the right thing for me. The two electricians and the plumbers and the takeaway guy, when he came to warn me, I think that was a massive sign, because I didn't have to see him that day. Like, you know, he could have just not said any of that and just been like whatever, but he didn't. He literally went all in and told me the truth. The universe had sent me these signs and had sent me the help when I needed it the most. And it sent me Lucy, because Lucy, I know her really well now because we went through that whole thing together. And like I say, I am so grateful that she came out of nowhere at the time when I needed it the most. And I'm so grateful to her. Like I said to her, though, a lifetime supply of free haircuts is the very least I can do. I would do anything for her now, and I feel very grateful that she came and helped me at a time when I needed it the most. And she didn't even have to do that. She had a 6-week-old baby, so she's there looking after a small baby, writing me emails every single night. And I don't think she even knew herself what she was getting herself into until we were like deep in the thick of it. But I'm so grateful, because she could have given up at any time and just said, look, you've just got to cut your losses, or, you know, you've made this mistake, you've got to go with it. Instead, she was like, no, we are fighting this for you, I'm going to get you out of this. And I truly believe that she was sent by the universe as well. Anyway, so after all of that had happened, my situation this year has just completely flipped to everything that happened last year. And I ended up, so I was obviously working in Manchester. My plan was to get a salon in Manchester. It all fell through. In Stafford, where I was renting my chair 2 days a week, the salon which I was working at ended up coming up for let. The girl who was getting rid of it, who had it previously that I'd been renting off, so that kind of fell into my hands, and I ended up taking on the Stafford Salon earlier this year, and we've renovated all that now, and it's amazing. And now I want to let you know the mindful things which I did last year, which I truly believe have helped me flip my situation from what I was going through last year to this year. One of the main things which I did during that time was I kept saying to myself that things are going to get better, and I kept saying things to myself like, things can come into your life at any time, anything can change at any minute, and I truly believe that that is true, and things will happen as they should. Even though last year was super tough, and I was honestly on this mental torturous roller coaster where like I was so stressed and so worried about the future, I just kept saying to myself that things were going to be okay and everything was happening as it should. And it did teach me a huge massive lesson, and I feel like I've learned a lot from last year. The second most powerful thing which I did was in December this time last year, I was at my wit's end, so I was in a lot of debt. I'd wasted all of that business loan on my car, which was devastating, and I just felt, I suppose a lot of people are probably feeling like this right now. I was feeling just like, I just couldn't believe it, and I just didn't know what was going to happen for 2020. I still didn't know whether I was going to have to still pay for that lease, whether I was out of it or not, even though they had surrendered it. It still hadn't been confirmed. And yeah, I was just at a very uncertain point. So I did this vision board, and on my vision board I put loads of, basically a vision board is just a piece of paper, or it's a board where you put photos of things that you want to attract into your life, and I put dates next to some of the images. And this has been, other than the way I speak to myself, I feel like this was one of the most powerful things in this process, which helped attract the most unbelievable things into my life. It was almost like whatever I wanted I put on this board, and then throughout 2020 certain things off that board just came to me. It was almost like I didn't have to like do anything, they just were just attracted into my life so easily. It's really, really weird. I want to tell you a few of the things off the board which have come true, and now this is quite a private thing because it's all a bit far-fetched, especially if you're not really into any of this like spiritual universal energy kind of stuff. But the first thing which was mental that came into my life from the board, obviously I'd lost a lot of money on the salon, I was in a lot of debt, so I put a cheque to myself for £15,000 by July, and I put July next to it. And with the pandemic all going on, well, as soon as this pandemic hit in March, I was literally like, I can forget that money. Like, I'm not going to make 15 grand when I'm not even at work, which was crazy. But I had started, so I did my board in the December. In the January, February, I had been really good with my money. I had been really saving. I'd been paying off some of the debts that I'd had. I'd just really been trying to sort myself out after what I'd been through with the salon. Anyway, the pandemic hit in the March, and at this point I thought, you know what, it is what it is. We're all in the same boat here. Like, everyone, you know, doesn't know what's going on, and I just kind of forgotten about the vision board and the money. I just thought, I'll see what happens. Anyway, would you believe, my accountant texted me in about the April, May, and she was like, Amy, because you've got your salon in Stafford, you should be entitled to a grant from the government of £10,000. And I was like, because it was only a small salon, I wasn't sure. Hadn't had it very long at this point, so I was like, oh, I'll just have to see, kind of thing. I said I'll send my sister's boyfriend into the salon just to have a look. So he went down, and would you believe, I had a letter saying that I was liable for a £10,000 grant, which I was like, what? And then when I started back and then we started back, weirdly enough, obviously I'd put July on the board, and weirdly enough I started back at work, and because I'd blocked everyone together that month, I'd made the rest of that money all back up. So the money from that £15,000 actually did come into my life, even through the most unbelievable circumstances, which was crazy, you know, because at the time you would have thought, no way, but if the way that everything happened, because I'd taken over the Stafford salon, a bit unexpected, that then gave me the grant to help me get through, obviously, the coronavirus pandemic, and it also helped me pay for everything that I went through the following year. So it was really weird. So I'd say that was probably the most craziest thing that came true off the board. The second most crazy thing that I put on the board was I put photos that I wanted to do an online course. So something I've wanted to do for so long is do online training. I'm so busy with clients day to day and back to back with them. I already make a lot of money with doing my clients, and I'm very busy and in demand. So for me to take a whole day off my schedule to then go and train someone one-to-one, it isn't feasible, or I'd have to charge a very high price for the training. So I've wanted for a long time to offer like an online training course, but it's one of the things I've always wanted to do, but I've never actually got around to doing it, never had the time to do it. And weirdly enough, when this pandemic hit, I straight away went and learned how to edit videos. So I went on online and like learned how to use Final Cut Pro, started doing a few little like YouTube videos and a few little IGTVs. I feel like a lot of freelance, you know, that was the time where I actually had time to like learn different things and have a play around with things. Anyway, so when I was younger, I used to live in a little village called Little Haywood, and I used to hang around with these guys, these lads, and one of their mums is my accountant, who I have a lot to do with her. Obviously she's my accountant, but I do her hair, and we're very close. I feel like she's been so good to me. And with a son, we haven't kept as much in touch. It's one of them as you get a bit older, like we will, if I see him, we'd have a really deep conversation and catch up, and he's always at the end of the phone if I ever need him, but we wouldn't talk to each other like really regularly like we would when we were younger. Anyway, he's got his own business, well, he's got his hand in a couple of pies, but he does websites, he's very like techie, and he got into, this is probably the weirdest thing of all. Anyway, so when I'd made a few of these YouTube videos and I'd posted a couple of them, he got in touch with me and he was like, Ames, like, I've set up, he said, how have you been? Like, you know, I think I'd spoke to him a little bit on Facebook, we probably hadn't properly caught up in, I'd say, a couple of years. And weirdly enough, I'd seen a few of my videos and he got in touch with me and just said, hi Ames, this is really random, hope you're okay. Just to let you know, I've set up a platform where freelancers and other people can offer online training. He says you can make your own, everything's already set up, all you need to do is film and upload the videos, and then you can sell your course. Now this was mental because this is like exactly what I wanted, and he just came to me and said, look, I've seen a few videos you've been posting, would you be interested in doing an online course? And weirdly enough, that's what I've wanted to do for so long. So that's another crazy thing which like came into my life. Another strange thing is this time last year I had put a lot of weight on, okay? So I was probably a stone and a half heavier than what I am now, because I'd been working loads of hours over last Christmas. I'd had a lot of stress. My diet had gone out the window. Like, I wasn't doing any exercise other than running around the salons. I was working basically 7 days a week, trying to bring so much money in to try and keep everything going with what I was going through with the other salon and everything. So I totally let myself go. And when the pandemic hit in the March, I was like, oh my God, I need to lose some weight. So I did a bit of dieting, did a few little online workouts, and now I'm not like, as a person, like, I'm not like a massive gym goer anyway, because I'm so busy with work. I'll just go for the odd run here and there, and you know, to be honest, I wasn't doing any home workouts. I'd go to the gym the odd time, like maybe once a week. It's so funny because I had a gym membership and I barely used to go. I used to always be like, oh, I'll go once, then I'd leave it like another 3 weeks. I was one of them. So during lockdown, obviously everyone was off, and I had this picture of my body and this weight on my vision board of what I wanted to get to in 2020. Then I noticed on Facebook or something, or Instagram, that this girl whose hair I used to do, who I know, called Roxy, had started like doing these like free online like at home workouts. So I was like, amazing. So I got in touch with her and said, oh, can I join? And she was like, yeah, and I got added into this like WhatsApp group with all these girls, and she used to do like live Zoom free workouts during the lockdown, which were really helpful actually, because they got me into working out from home. Anyway, so I was in this WhatsApp group, and weirdly enough, she wrote in our group, this is probably around, I want to say like end of May, June. She was like, oh, hi girls, I hope you've been enjoying the workouts. I'm going to be doing like a 6-week program. It's the first one which I've ran. let me know if you're interested. So obviously I got back and said, oh yeah, I'm interested, send us the information. And then I signed myself up. And doing her 6-week plan, honestly, it got me into such good, amazing habits for food and for exercise, something which I'd never done before. I've always yo-yo dieted with my diet, and with exercise, that's another thing which has always suffered because of the amount of hours which I've been working and all the excuses which I used to tell myself. So doing her 6-week plan, I, weirdly enough, got to the exact weight that was on my vision board. And I feel like that was another thing which, it wasn't like I went out there and just was like, right, I'm dieting and I want to get down to this weight and get down to this whatever. It just came to me, the fact that I got added into that group, and then she said to me, do you want to do this plan? And she runs through like what your goals are, what's your goal weight and everything, and I got there. So that was another thing that I was super, super grateful of. And for anyone who's watching this, I would recommend Roxy's plan to anybody. It's so good for, you know, women and fitting into, you know, our lives and, you know, getting you in really good eating habits. I just highly, highly recommend her. Another weird thing which came off the vision board for me was I'd been through all of that with the other salon and it was super stressful. I'd obviously just took this the Stafford salon over at this point, and I'd put on there like pictures, like inspo pictures of what I wanted the salon to look like. So it was like light pink, quite girly, and there was one picture in particular which was like a big photo that had like some nail desks and some fancy little sofas. Anyway, so in 2020 I took over the Stafford salon, renovated all of it, and it's super girly now. It's got all flower walls in it, it's all like light pinks, neutrally kind of colours. So I thought, oh, do you know what, I've managed to achieve that off my vision vision board. In the meantime, I was working in the Dalton salon in Manchester, renting a chair there, which the interior there is kind of like, it was sort of a bit darker inside, and it was sort of more browns, and just a little bit darker, not really similar to what the picture on my vision board was. But unexpectedly, this year with the Manchester salon, we had a change in management. So Lisa, the manager, the owner I'd been working under, sold the business, so she left, and she's not in hairdressing anymore. And we had another lady come and take over the salon, and she made a couple of changes to it, and you know, fair enough, it's her own business, she took it over, she had fresh ideas, and it caused a bit of there was a few changes with the staff, which made me think, do you know what, I fancy a change as well. And weirdly enough, it happened quite quick, all of this did. It happened in like November time, like around the last lockdown, so only like 2 months ago. Anyway, so I started to have a look for another salon, and one of the girls at work told me about a salon which is literally over the road. Got in touch with the owner, went to have a look at it, and within a week I was like, wow, this salon's amazing, it's perfect for what I'm looking for. It's obviously only over the road from the other one. So after the last lockdown, beginning of December, I moved and started there. And it's only been the last few weeks when I've been like reflecting at my vision board. Weirdly enough, I'm working in a room now which is so much like the picture. It's got like a big bar in it with nail technicians all along it, with like a little sofa similar to on the picture that was on my vision board. So I don't know if that's connected, but that's another weird thing which came from me doing the vision board. One of the things though that I did learn from the vision board, because there's still some things on there which haven't manifested, and I truly believe that the reason for that is those things, I haven't done what I needed to do for them to happen. I won't say too much because I do plan in 2021 to focus more on these things. So I would recommend anyone to do a 2021 vision board. It will just, do you know what? Even if you think of it, you need to think of it as just, what have you got to lose? Like, it's a good mindful tool that you can do, which will help get you focusing on the things that you do want to attract into your life, rather than focus on any news or the things that you don't want to happen. And I truly believe that there's something more powerful, there's an energy more powerful than the human energy to make these things happen and come into your life. It's almost like shopping, like you say what you want and make them known and they will happen. Which sounds crazy. If you're new to all of this like stuff, then you'll probably think I've lost the freaking plot now. Yeah, I do think that when you do your vision board, I do think that doing the vision board is one thing and showing what you want, but you've also got to align yourself every day and think, am I doing the things which are going to help me work more towards these things and attracting them into my life. Another thing that I've learned from the vision board is you need to be patient and don't give up. And it was like me with the salon last year. There were so many times I probably thought, oh my God, like I can't get another salon. But just be patient. Everything will happen as it's meant to, and things, the most unexpected things can come into your life at any time. Anyways, I just want to wrap this video up now, and I want to thank you for watching. I hope that from watching this video and hearing about what I went through in my journey last year and how I've totally flipped my whole life around in the last 12 months, I hope it inspires you to know that you can do the same. And I want to send you lots of love and wish you all the success for 2021. Take care. Bye bye.